Good afternoon. I'm going to start chapter 10 in Genesis today. If you listened carefully yesterday, you heard me say in chapter 10, but I was wrong, and I'm sorry. It was chapter 9. At the heading of my Bible, if it's going to start a new chapter, it puts that chapter up there at the top. So I probably read it and thought I was saying the right thing. But today I'm starting chapter 10. And it says, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood." It always says Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But we learned in chapter 9 that Ham was the younger son. And then we learned later on in chapter 10 that Shem was the brother of Japheth, the elder. So that puts Shem in the middle. But every time they name the sons of Noah, they name them Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Shem was first because from him came the godly line that led us to Jesus Christ and sent Jesus to us. So, praise the Lord. Let's go on from there. The sons of Japheth. So we know he was the elder brother. Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshech and Tiras, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz and Riphath and Togarmah, and the sons of Javan, Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim and Dana. Now these are Gentiles, and I'm a Gentile. So somewhere in these children is my grandpa, and Japheth was my grandpa. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't have some people in my lineage that were Shem's people or Ham's people. I could. But I am a Gentile, so, and I am, did come from the areas, my family came from the areas that these people spread to. So I believe that I really came through predominantly Japheth's people. So by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families in their nations. Now we're reading about this, and it looks like they're just going out of the ark to the places that they were going to go. But that's not really how it happened, because in chapter 11 we're going to find out something about how they did divide. God told them when they came out of the ark, let's see what he said. He told them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. So he wanted the whole earth to be replenished, filled up. And so this is talking like they just went right out of the ark to do that. But when we get to chapter 11, we'll find out that didn't happen like that. Okay? And the sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim and Phut and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah and Sabta and Raamah and Rabtekah. And the sons of Raamah, Sheba and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. So this mighty hunter before the Lord, we don't know what that means. But he started Babylon. He started Babel. When we get over to chapter 11, we're going to find out about Babel. But we know that all throughout the Bible, Babylon and Babel and all that came out of all of that was not good. And the land of Shinar, when you look it up, it's that land between the Tigris and the Euphrates River. It was very fertile. It was in the Fertile Crescent and very fertile, and probably there were lots of people there because it was so fertile. So the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, and the land of Shinar. So his kingdom was right there. And that was just the beginning of his kingdom. I don't know how far it spread. Out of that land went forth Asher and builded Nineveh. So Asher is a name that started Assyrians. And Nineveh was the capital of Assyria. And the city Rehoboth and Calah and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, the same as a great city. So it's talking about the great cities they built after they were born from this boy Ham. And Mizraim begat Ludim and Anamim and Lehabim and Naphtahim and Pathrasim and Casluhim, out of whom came Philistim and Caphtorim. So Philistim, of course, that sounds like the Philistines. And so sounds like the Lord is trying to tell us where all these people came from later on when we read about them in the Bible. And Canaan, this is the one that was cursed, begat Sidon, his firstborn. And we know that there's a city called Sidon in the Holy Land. And Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgasite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. Afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. So we read about, if you read the Bible, you know that the Jebusites were in Jerusalem, and Heth, the Hittites, that's where we're from, the Hittites, and the Hivites. All of these people were in the land of Canaan when Joshua brought them in, and they had to remove them so that they could live in the land of Canaan. See, we have a different feeling about the name Canaan, don't we? We think of Canaan as the promised land, but Canaan was really that son of Ham that was cursed. But he settled in the promised land before it was promised to Abraham. So this is all before a lot of things happened, because it was just the beginning of civilization again after the flood. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zeboam, even unto Lasha. This is where Canaan and all their families lived. These are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So, again, it's explaining what will happen, but it won't happen until chapter 11, and we find out what happened there. Okay, now it says the last one is unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam and Asher and Arphaxad and Lud and Aram. And the children of Aram, Uz and Hul and Gether and Mash. And Arphaxad begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber. So Eber, I have just heard it, I don't know for a fact, but I've heard after this name Eber were the people called Hebrews. You know, the book of Hebrews in the Bible is about the Jews and Jesus. To the Hebrews. The Hebrews were known as Hebrews, seems like, since they became a people. They were the children of Israel, but they also were Hebrews, and that's the language they speak, is Hebrew. And the only explanation I've had for that is this man Eber. And when it says, unto Shem also the father of all the children of Eber. And I wonder sometimes, I mean just lately, just today I guess I should say, because Eber could have been Shem's wife's name. Sometimes a woman can have the same name that men have. For example, Lee is my daughter's name, but it's also a man's name. And in the Bible, Elon was a man's name, and you know, famous Elon now, but I had, from the time I was a little girl, I knew my Aunt Elon. She was a strong Christian. And Elon means strong oak, so she was like that. So she really had the right name. But I was wondering if maybe Eber was Shem's wife's name. Maybe not. But anyhow, Eber, I think, is where the name Hebrew came from. So it says, Arphaxad begat Selah, and Selah begat Eber, and unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Now let's look at that Peleg. His name means division. Peleg. So in his days was the earth divided. When the world was made, we read about how, let's read that about the land. It says, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. So, this is talking about the land was one continent. They call it Panacea, one continent. And in the days of Peleg was the earth divided. All of that land, the Russia and China and all the way over to Europe, and then go Africa beneath, and just pull that all back together. And you know, they say it fits. It does fit. It fits. Pull it all back together. And that was Panacea. And that happened, that division, that pulling apart, happened in the days of Peleg. And that's why he was called division. So it must have been before he was born that it happened for him to call him Peleg. And I figured it up, and it from 4004 BC, it seemed like it was divided probably before Peleg was born. He was born around 2014 BC. So maybe after 2,000 years, the Lord divided the land. Because 4004, which is when they say the world was created, then give it 2,000 years after the flood. And after the flood was around, let's see, the flood was around 2183 BC. Right, then after the flood was Peleg was born in, seems like about 2014 BC. So you could kind of say around 2000 BC, after 2,000 years, God let the land divide. God let the land divide into continents that we have. And if you lived right by the crack, where it cracked off, like if you lived right on the edge of Africa, where it divided open to Africa and South America, you'd really realize it happened. But maybe in the middle of that big continent, you wouldn't feel the difference, or in the middle of the piece that cracked off. I don't know. That's an amazing thing to happen. And it says, for in his days was the earth divided. That's Peleg's. And so that was around 2000 BC. And so about 2,000 years had passed. And the earth was divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. And Joktan begat Almadad, and Sheleph, and Hazar Maveth, and Jerah, and Hadoram, Uzal, and Dikia, and Obal, and Abimael, and Sheba, and Ophir, and Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. I counted them up, and there were 13 of them. Don't you know he had some daughters too? Us women are never mentioned much. I guess we're of no account. No, I don't think we are of no account, but the Bible would have been too full, I guess, if he'd tried to name all the daughters too. Over in Moses' time, though, there were some daughters that didn't have a brother, and they made sure they got the inheritance. So that was good, wasn't it? Okay, let's see if I can finish up this chapter. And their dwelling was from Mesha as thou goest unto Sephar, a mount of the east. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Okay, we learned that, but tomorrow we're going to learn how that happened, because Noah spoke like the same language that Shem, Ham, and Japheth did, so they all spoke the same language when they came out of the ark. Okay, we'll see what happened tomorrow. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.